Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today we're going to dive into 5 major changes in Lords of Ragnarok by Awaken Realms, designed by Adam Kopinski, one of my favorite designers in this space. I am very excited to have a prototype here in front of us. This is going to be coming to GameFound very soon, and I want to do my very best to let you know the things that are different, the way the game is actually operating and playing, and again, 5 of the things you should be aware of, paying attention to, potentially concerned about, or overwhelmingly excited about, depending on how you and your gaming group play. This is going to be the significant changes based on the prototype we have in front of us, and along with that, if you're brand new to the channel, hit that subscribe button down below. We're putting out a whole slew of content on this game, from gameplays, 3-player, 4-player, 2-player, I don't know, whatever you all want. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you'd like to see, and we'll make it happen. This is the first in a lineup of videos as we explore and play with the prototype. Let's go ahead and swing into this. So, 5.76 things that are different here in Lords of Ragnarok. First off, let's start with one of the most significant and most obvious, and that's going to be the action selection track here in the middle, and of course, decapitating one of our miniatures and models here. So this action selection track here in the center is going to be a replacement for your action tracks on your personal board. This is major because it creates a little bit of interactivity between the players at the table. You're now going to be taking your special action by selecting one of these wheels. These wheels will be located and assigned to various different regions that you might have favor with, and as you take those actions, if you're the first person there, you'll potentially get a bonus. But as that starts to change and escalate, other players will be playing their cubes or their actions on top of your marker, meaning that they're going to be giving you a bonus every time they go to that location as well. As the game starts to grow and escalate, this becomes a tug of war, a push and pull of where do I want to go early to establish dominance, have control, get the bonuses as the game goes on, what regions do I need to align myself with these relationships that start escalating play, allowing me to spawn units in different areas, buff my strength, and even potentially fight during mid-game upgrades and bonuses. And of course, how soon and how rapidly do I want to start cycling the game, building monuments, because that's going to cycle that track, giving me a fresh, clean slate, a way to restart. Your special actions have been pulled off of your player boards, they've been placed in the center of the map, and they drive the game. You and your friends are going to be looking across at each other, trying to puzzle what everyone else is going to be doing. Instead of one point of interaction when you cycle and kind of move forward the timeline, instead, right now, this is going to be interaction on every single stage. Let's pull over into a bit of an additional but side point, and that's just going to be the overall complexity of the game. How easy is this going to be to table? And I gotta say, Awaken Realms is doing something really cool here. The base game, as far as I'm concerned, steps it down in complexity quite a bit from what I experienced in the original Lords of Hellas. I think this is going to be a much more accessible introduction into the series as a whole, and better is a question you're going to have to solve for yourself. I mean, the idea of more accessible, less complexity might also mean that there's less depth in this, and that could be a concerning factor, but I'm working with a prototype here, and the reality is Awaken Realms is going to pile on the expansions, the modules, the extra little bits and pieces, and so right now my view of this game is that it's going to be easy to step into, and then it's going to have piles of depth that you can dig down into. But I can also see that the experience, the level of design that's here is more advanced than it was in that original game, right? Years and years have passed since that original game came out, and the idea behind game design has continued to transform. This is approached from a streamlined session. Pull back the curtain a little bit, don't make things quite as convoluted, and do your very best to allow players to have a skirmish type area control experience without bottlenecking them or giving them too many routes. We've pulled away quest cards. We don't cycle your hero through the same journey over and over again. Instead of 3 draft phases, we actually are scoped down to 2, and interactions such as challenges or region control is going to be a lot more simplified, but also compressed into the center. You're encouraged to bump into each other, which is going to pull over into point number 3. Point number 3 is going to be the nature of the game. I very much view this as more of a skirmish game, which may or may not terrify you, right? If you love Lords of Hellas because of the in-depth strategy and area control nature of the game, I think Lords of Hellas was much more of an area control game than Lords of Ragnarok is. Lords of Ragnarok deals with area control. You need region control and superiority in order to build temples which upgrade your units, to establish control, to spread across the map. It can be a win condition and a victory condition depending on how everything cycles, but the way that this map is built and the way that you're interacting with each other at the table really heavily encourages direct player concentration and interaction. You're going to be bumping into each other. You're going to be able to challenge regions and knock players out, killing their troops potentially or moving them back into other areas. Board control is going to cycle a lot more often. The end game victory condition, if Ragnarok triggers, is going to be controlling regions next to this middle central spire, and that's super important because it means you're going to be squabbling over and battling over those regions higher and higher and more often than you'd imagine. Along with that, creatures are going to be manipulated around the board. They're going to have a lot more control, and the board is a lot tighter and more condensed, meaning you're going to be able to go around, skirt the edges, and jump into different locations, engaging in fights and battles way more often than I typically did in the original game. I found the original game I'd build my armies up quite a bit, and then I'd plan one or two or a few strategic campaigns in order to close off and win the game. This has us bumping heads and bumping into each other constantly. For me, that's super exciting. For you, leave a comment down below. Do you want more of an area control game, or are you excited about a spin in that skirmish genre? Bridging onto that, I mentioned another thing which is so important when it comes to this map layout and exactly what you're doing on the map. We're going to have these ships over here, these vessels that you need in any sort of Viking game, but it's actually going to create adjacency in so many different regions of the board here. These vessels create adjacency to any region connected in these big swaths of water, which is really big. It means you can manipulate and move across the board a lot more effectively and efficiently. It means that this location here is adjacent to this one down here. It means that this island over here is adjacent to this one all the way over on the other half of the board. You're never really more than a move or two away from everyone else at the table, and that's big. It's big for two reasons. One, because you're going to be trying to establish control and setting up different alliances with different cards that are going to be on the table here where you can collect runes. Runes are going to be a resource in the game that allow you to manipulate and take certain special actions, but in order to get there, you'll need to move around the board. You kind of need to go to every corner of this island, meaning you're going to be fighting more, like I said, in the skirmish nature, but you're also encouraged to manipulate and move, which means everything has to be close and adjacent to each other, and nothing can be entirely locked down or entirely controlled by any one player. That's exactly what this game is doing. Let's bridge over into those runes. The runes are going to be another major element of the game that's changed a little bit, right? Where your hero starts, if he's in a location where they have a rune, he'll be able to collect that right at the beginning of his round. That is going to allow you to unlock certain special actions depending on if you have pairs, sets, or different types of runes, like spawning armies or upgrading your strength or moving and manipulating around the board additional time. It's little extra bonus actions, but here's where these are key. They're going to also be the things that mandate your relationships with different houses or different locations and regions on the board. Why does that matter? Well, I was talking to you about the central spire. The central spire is tied to these regions, so you need runes to do special actions and also align yourself with different locations. When you're aligned with that location, when someone takes that special action, you'll then utilize that ability that gives you. Like, for instance, down here, this is going to increase one of your armies by a whole strength of 1. That could be a massive advantage in the game and really starts playing into the skirmish nature of the game because you want to escalate your board and your table presence. You're kind of tableau building, but you're doing so across the map. Now, let's bridge over and take a step back and start talking about two of the things that have impacted me the most. First off is going to be monster hunting and skirmish. I talked a little bit about how you're going to be manipulating and moving monsters across the board more than you ever have before, and that is exactly the case. These runes are going to help you take control of different creatures. Not Loki here, who I just picked up, but you're going to be able to attach your own custom little bases to these creatures here. That means when the creature card comes up, triggering their impact on the game state, you're going to control, move, and manipulate them. And on top of that, they will never be able to damage your units or your hero. It's a big deal here. It impacts the game a lot. You want to invest in certain creatures, take advantage of their special abilities, and manipulate them to screw over your opponents. And if you do it at the right time, it could really change the flow of the game or leave a region open ready for you to step in and take control love. Along with that, monster hunting has been debuffed in a little bit. I mean, for me, Hercules strategy was always the thing I went with, right? Get Hercules, get weapons, upgrade, attack, fight, and win the game by sheer destruction. And I'm still trying to do that here, but the puzzle's a little bit different. This time you need to win 2 combats against any creatures on the table, which can be a little bit more difficult, right? There's been some card shifting and changing, but the nature of the fighting's still going to be the same. But after you're done with that, you're going to then, and only then, be able to face off against Loki. Loki is going to be your new combat win condition. Whether or not there's other ones that are going to pop up, I have no idea, but in this prototype, Loki's the guy we're facing off with. Here's the issue. His card is going to come with a lot of special effects, a lot of special abilities that kind of screw you over in the process, but also doubled pairs, meaning you're going to need to be able to play doubled cards at the same time in order to deal a wound or damage to a specific location. That means in any one combat, the likelihood of you completing him in 1 or 2 combat rounds is going to be very, very hard. You're probably going to need 2 to 3 different engagements with Loki in order to close off and secure that win condition. But once you've wounded him, unless someone else is competing with you in the monster hunting pathway, they're not going to be able to fight him. So there's a give and take there, right? A little bit more closed off. People can't jump in and steal your prize, but also it's a little bit harder to do, meaning driving for that end game, driving for that win condition is going to require you to be involved in the skirmish nature of the game a little bit more. You're going to have to be struggling and fighting with each other. And the final thing I want to go over here, and then we'll save it for a few other videos later on. Remember, hit that subscribe button down below if you're excited about the content and you are excited about all this information. We're going to be displaying this quite a bit. We're going to talk about endgame. Endgame is going to trigger for a variety of reasons. Some of them are going to be familiar to you, like building all the temples, cycling to the end of the temple track, or controlling certain regions, but there's going to be one specific endgame which is really, really major in this version of the game. That's going to be Ragnarok itself, this big temple here in the center where I believe a meteor crashes down, destroying all of Viking civilization, and that's going to happen if and when you complete certain objective cards. We have a whole series of these different objective cards, and every time you build a monument, you're going to be checking for them, checking to see if they're completed. And by the time that 3 of these are closed off, you're actually going to be triggering Ragnarok, which means victory condition is going to be tied to adjacency to this middle zone, kind of the Loki strategy, right? Have all your guys wiped out, they'll greet you in Valhalla, and you'll win the game. So this is a fascinating approach, and I'm going to go ahead and go through some of these. Like, for instance, 2 whole lands controlled by 1 player, 4 or more realms allied to 1 player, 2 killed monsters. Basically, if end condition is being driven in any other sense, you're going to be driving end condition here as well. So if people are kind of equal across the board, one person's going monster strategy, one person's going temple strategy, another person's controlling regions. Once those hit, if 3 people are fairly balanced, screw that, we're going to Ragnarok. This is super exciting. Like I said, a more accessible approach to this Lord series. I cannot wait to show it off to you more. But that's all I have for you right now. Hopefully you're excited about this game. Whatever the case, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Get out and play some more games, and leave a comment down below letting me know what type of coverage you'd like to see. Depending on the comments that we get, I'll customize our coverage accordingly. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. If you can't tell, I can't wait.